Right, let's bring you this discussion now. Qondiswa James is a cultural worker that's living in Cape Town. She's an award-winning theatre maker, performance artist and activist. And on Thursday, ahead of the President's State to the Nation address, she also staged a solo performance outside the City Hall. In case you missed it, she was wearing a black dress and a veil while standing silently on a wooden platform and, in fact, was later removed by police. For a sense of what underpinned her decision to stage this performance, she joins us now via our video link to give us a bit more details around this. And Qondiswa, it's great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for making time on a Sunday morning. I guess that really becomes the first question for people who are able to catch sight of your demonstration, your artistic expression, but weren't able to engage with you. What were you hoping would come out of it?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult to think or to assume that anything will come out of it, right? So I think at first it wasn't that for me. I just know that there is something inside me and there is a sense of what's happening around us. And the fact that these people have parties on our time and on our money to celebrate work they have not done, to make more empty promises they will not fulfill. I only knew that that's the context in which I am in, and I must act. I must do something. I'm not a politician. I am not a person in the military. I am not a lawyer. I don't know what I can do, but this is what I can do. And so in the first instance, I didn't know how people were going to act. I didn't assume that anything would happen. I actually thought that I was going to be there by myself and with my friend who helped me. I didn't think there was going to be anyone there. But what actually transpired, I think, is more interesting even than the action that I took, which was, besides the police making a sensation of themselves, right, which was more about how the public, how we together created something, created a moment. And there were instances of people around who were witnessing, who were narrating as I was installed. And then it became this like really awesome collaborative effort narrating the moment in which we find ourselves in South Africa today, and which felt more interesting and perhaps more important, not me, right, but what was happening with us, everybody, which felt more interesting and more important than what was happening on the red carpet on the other side.
Absolutely. And we'll speak a bit more about the reaction from the public in just a moment. But, I mean, artistically, there must have been some kind of deliberateness, that's a made-up word. You were deliberate in just aesthetically what you look like whilst you were there, I imagine, right? Help us understand then what underpinned those decisions, the black dress, the platform you were standing on, your movements whilst you were there. Some thought must have gone into that.
For sure. So I'm like really interested in the idea of what haunts either the nation or the public cityscape, the land as is, or what is underneath that at times comes out, right, in the ruptures that happen or have happened in this country, or sometimes in the instances of protests or whatever. So there's this sense for me that zikhona izinto ezininzi ezilapha ngaphansi which are needing to be exhumed, right? Which at every point where there's an uprising, I feel like it's an expression of that. So, okay, how to bring out what is underneath, right? So a sense of something ghostly, right? Something bigger than ourselves, something that takes to flight, right? Something that can float, that can seem almost ethereal, right? But which also is shrouded and masked and faceless because it's not about me, right? It's perhaps ancestral, right? It's perhaps historical. It's perhaps about belonging to a tradition of people who intervene in particular moments, right? So there's that sense, right? The people who have done this work before us, who have died, right? For people to come and like do this like gross demonstration of like misuse of public funds, essentially.
Right.
But that we come from a different tradition. So how to bring that up? Then there was the idea of the black, which was the mourning, right? And I think that's the core of it. So this haunting figure, which comes from not even the past, which comes from underneath, it's here, it's right here. And that it's shrouded in blackness and it's in mourning. Because something has died and something continues to die here. But the work was originally conceptualized as part of a collective of works that I did actually last year, that I did where I popped up in public space using different iterations, costume, etc., to try and experiment with how the public understands different kinds of work that needs to be done to essentially get us to where we're going. whether that's a more free place, a more equal society, whatever that is. And then later I was asked to do an intervention at UCT. So on Monday, actually, I did an intervention at UCT to speak back to the sense of the fires, right, that have happened, the fire at UCT, but which seems to echo to me the 2015, 16, 17 fires, and perhaps the fires that predated it at all the universities. And also then the fire that happened at Parliament, right? And I know myself, I'm very unclear with what has happened and with what this arrest of this homeless man and all these things mean, right? And what is... I'm not even going to go there. But that this sense of fires, and then there's this fire happening at the military base, that there is something that is happening, right, in the ground. There's something that's shaking. And so what does it mean to speak back to that? What does it mean to stand on the land and feel it come through you? So even the movements, right? I only dwell in space, and only when I'm moved either by the wind, by the earth, by the feeling of the people around me, by whatever, then I move very slowly. So I'm working with the idea of statue. Right. But a statue that doesn't stay, right? That doesn't seek to make memorial of itself, like the countless statues that are here in Cape Town, right? Of all dead white men we don't care about. Something that appears and disappears. That appears when it feels it is necessary, it feels that it is useful, and then disappears. Right. The point is not to create a... Sorry, you can speak now.
Yeah. No, and I'm listening quite closely to you. There are several things you've said. Let me hone in on one of them. Interestingly enough, the president, and I'm sure you might have not been interested in the SONA itself, but part of what he said was he wants to create a new consensus, a kind of social compact to try solve the myriad of issues we're facing in the country. That is interesting in a context where law enforcement officials who are meant to safeguard the integrity of this proceeding appear not to know how to engage with you and what you're trying to raise to begin with. What do you read into that?
It's the contradictions, right, of the presidency, of Cyril himself, of politicians in general, of states, of people who would dare to run nations on behalf of people as opposed to having real, meaningful engagements with what it would mean for each of us to actually contribute in the running of this thing. Not just the doing of it, you know, but the running of this thing. So it speaks to the contradiction to me, that these people, as politicians, are human beings with jobs, and their jobs are to make promises, to not deliver, so their jobs stay relevant, right? And so for me, when Cyril says the youth consent, I'm sorry, I do not trust these people. I do, and I mean, sure, these people in general, but governments in general, I don't trust them. And especially because then what you say happened, which is that the police remove me, they don't know how to react with me. I'm not even doing anything. And the one thing that I knew for a fact is that I'm not here to get arrested. I'm not here to fight. I'm not even here to speak. I'm just here to stand and to watch and to see if you will be moved, right? And the fact that the police in that instance, it feels to me, do not react as humans, do not react as a greater part of the community, right? That would need to be in that consensus. But they react as security, as securitized force on behalf of the state, right, to safeguard proceedings, which feels to me that this whole thing that's happening is a spectacle. And it happens everywhere. We know. We expect it, even this ridiculous nonsense of the red carpet, etc., and the performances that everybody must do and the speeches every single year, right? And that these police are just there essentially to safeguard that what is happening continues to happen in exactly the same way. Yeah. I don't think it helps, or not pays, but pays the government to fulfill the promises. I don't think that it does. I think this myriad of confusion and fear and like making promises and feeling like we don't have time, I think it works for them, and that's where they would like to keep us. So that is what I read, that these people, they have other agendas, which are more about them being human beings. So I'm back to you know what I mean? I understand, but it's more about them being human beings than about them doing public good.
Sure. Look, people, as is the case with art, will respond differently to what you were able to demonstrate on that day. But I imagine there's a lot of individuals who found their moment of catharsis during that time. You know, this kind of release around the tensions built up because of the issues that you've helped us unpack as of this morning. So thanks for your time. And I guess, thank you very much for being brave enough to do what you did. Qondiswa James is a theatre maker, award-winning theatre maker, performance artist and an activist, joining us from Cape Town.